Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we bring you a very special episode of the Geeks and the Noobs today because we are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, wrestling. That's right, pro wrestling, WWE, AEW, whatever you want to call it. It's Royal Rumble season and we are ready to go. And I have brought in a very special guest this week, none other than comic punk guy, CPG. Say hello to the peeps.
What's going on, everyone, on the Beard's Twitch?
We are going to chat on something I don't get to talk about a lot. I have been wanting to start a wrestling podcast, but it's not exactly easy to do. So we have WWE's Royal Rumble, the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. It is this Saturday. Both CPG and I will be in attendance. Some of us have to sit in the nosebleed. Some of us get to sit down with the good peeps. But it is what it is. Just saying. I'm sitting down in 114. I'm going to brag about it all the time. But the Royal Rumble is a huge event, and it is most notably known as not only the kickoff to the road to WrestleMania, which is obviously it's the Super Bowl for the WWE, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying Super Bowl, but I'm going to say it again, Super Bowl. But the Royal Rumble is also known for its surprises, and it's one of the things that even a bad Rumble is still a good Rumble because you never know who's going to show up. And so before we get started on the Rumble, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long you've been into wrestling?
Oh man, I've been wrestling for many, many years. I kind of took breaks for a bit when I was in service. I wound up getting hurt, and it was right around the time that CM Punk was on his kind of quest for respect in his WWE Championship run, teasing leaving the company, basically rehashing that old thing from Ring of Honor. So that was kind of how I got back in around then, and have kind of stuck with it ever since. Through all the various things that's happened in wrestling, AEW, All In, all that sort of stuff, especially with it being so close to here in Chicago. You guys can find me on TikTok. I got 51,000 followers. We talk everything from comic books, wrestling, sci-fi, you name it. And yeah, it's pretty much what I'm about, and what I've been doing on the social medias.
Actually, I kind of came across Comic Punk here on TikTok because we kind of have a mutual enemy in a way. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to give him any love or anything, but he's passive aggressively toxic. Let's just say that. And from there, I found his page. Great stuff. Everybody should definitely go follow him on there. Also hit up his Instagram as well. Give him some love there. So you mentioned CM Punk, and actually, let's start there because I am one of the probably the few wrestling fans that is not a CM Punk fan. Now, you being from Chicago, I'm sure there's a lot of love for the guy, but I've actually worked a few shows with him on the Indies, and I got to know him, and not a fan. But there's a lot to be said about his return. Like,
Oh yeah.
it has been insanely massive, and something that has really helped AEW take that next step. And I'm not a huge fan of AEW, but there's a lot of great matches that come out of AEW, but I feel like for me AEW feels very like almost like a class system. It's very obvious where people are on the card versus there's certain people I don't ever see ever making the next step. Now
Yeah.
WWE, like there are certain guys like they'll never get a world championship match, but with it being sports entertainment, they do tend to be a little bit more all around the place. But AEW to me feels a little bit. But some of the matches, like the the first Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson match, is an instant classic.
Phenomenal
Yeah,
match.
and Bryan Danielson is somebody who I've loved for a long time. I got to work a few indie shows with him back in the day as well for Full Impact Pro Wrestling, which was kind of a spin-off of Ring of Honor in Florida. And to me, Bryan Danielson is probably the best just wrestler there is. So there's definitely a lot of talent there. It's just I don't know. But I also have to give them time. So let's kind of look at what do you think AEW is going to do to compare to say like a Royal Rumble or WrestleMania? I know like they had their what was it?
The Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal, or the that kind of Rumble-esque thing that they were doing
Yeah,
for
they
a
did
bit.
that thing for kind of. I was thinking about there was that one pay-per-view they did that was just it was just S tier level, and I don't know what. Not All Out. Was it All Out?
Yeah, All Out's usually they're like, they're big. That's their WrestleMania, for
The
lack of
one
a
where
better
Bryan
word.
Danielson and Adam Cole appeared on. That was All Out, right?
That
Or
was the
was
end of All Out. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so All Out is kind of like becoming their WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So do you see them? And of course, Cody is infamous at this point. But do you see them maybe going to a more gimmick style pay per view? Like they do have the casino chip, which that unfortunately hasn't really, or they had the brass ring one, which definitely didn't
Hmm.
pay off at all. There was
Yeah.
no payoff whatsoever for that. But do you think that they'll go the gimmick route to try to compete, or do you think they'll stick with kind of more of a? Because I've noticed they've kind of gone a WCW route, but on their TV shows instead of pay per views. Like I
Right.
think tonight is something at the beach, like which
Yeah. It's a
they're
big
in
beach
Cleveland.
brawl.
Yeah, but they're in
Yeah.
Cleveland, which is weird.
Yeah. The sandy
But
beaches of Cleveland.
yeah,
Yeah. I think with the pay-per-view structure for AEW is a lot different than WWE. There are only a couple pay-per-views a year. There's not one every month or every like 2 months, because you have pretty much you have All Out, you have the Top Gear, Revolution, and there's one more in there that I'm sure. And then they do these like mini event pay-per-views all throughout their shows, like they're doing tonight. And I think what that does is give you kind of like short and fast feuds that will grab people's attention and kind of, I don't want to say give the illusion, but give the illusion that you're watching a pay-per-view match on television. And that brings a lot of people in to see these kind of bouts that you otherwise would have to pay for a pay-per-view. And then you can use long-term storytelling for all the stuff that goes into the pay-per-views. Um, I think it's an interesting way to go about doing it. I don't think it'll last forever. At some point, there's going to be a shift in what they do. I think it's going to be after, because honestly, I think at some point Rampage is going to get moved and have 2 hours to do its own thing. They have too big of a roster right now, even though I know that there's a
yeah,
lot of kind of releases on their end over the horizon, but there's so much talent that they're not using. And once you get to the point where you have two shows that can not only compete with each other for the sake of storyline, but you can make pay-per-views out of it, AEW pay-per-views might become more commonplace than just the big three or big four that they have a year.
yeah,
Double or Nothing, that's the fourth one.
yeah. Oh yeah. Future made a comment they should steal the Gifts of the Gods gimmick from Lucha Underground. I'm actually not opposed to that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all.
That's actually not a bad idea. I know you have the laugh emoji with it, but I'm kind of thinking that's a good idea. There's a lot they can get from Lucha Underground. They are definitely a bloated roster right now. Definitely a bloated roster. Like, and so like yeah, we've got a lot of, and I think AEW. I think sometimes tries too hard to either bash WWE or distance themselves so far from WWE. Like they're not releasing anyone. They will never quote unquote release anyone unless there's something egregious. But they will
Hmm.
let contracts expire and then just not renew them, which to me is worse because then you're just like it's kind of like the Mustafa Ali situation right now.
Yeah,
Which
which is
which by the
unfortunate to
way,
see. He's another Chicago boy.
part of me thinks it's a work.
Possible.
I think it might be a work. Now the one reason I kind of today shifted away from the work thought was because Brian Kendrick's in the same situation. I just found out
Mm.
that Brian Kendrick asked for his release 6 weeks ago and hasn't been released yet. So maybe the Mustafa Ali thing isn't a work, but the fact of the way he like put it out on social media, which he's very good at social media, it could be a work and they could make a gimmick out of it. And he would be the person that could pull that gimmick off. Because he's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
already did that with Retribution and whatnot. And like where he's like, I don't
Man,
want
what
to.
a missed opportunity all that
Oh, I
was.
know that I was so looking forward to it. It was building up so well. The lights going out, people coming and attacking, and then we got Mason T-Bar, and ugh, what a terrible,
Yeah.
terrible thing. It was awful. But um, like I'm not a huge fan of the one booker thing. I remember I did some interviews for AEW back in 2019 at New York Comic Con. So this was before All In and their TV debut. And Chris Jericho literally said they don't have a booker. And it wasn't until after All In that Tony Khan started to book it instead of like basically they had like the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Cody, and Tony in a room and going, okay, who do we put with who? Who do we put with who? And it was like Tony became the booker. But I think as the company gets bigger and your roster gets bigger, having one person as a booker can be dangerous because it's
Hmm.
very easy to start forgetting people. And
Yep.
then you have situations like where Tony Khan and Big Swole, that whole situation,
Yeah.
coming out and saying what he said. I'm like, even if that was true, even if you're like, you're not a good enough wrestler for me to keep and I don't want to, you don't say that.
Right. Yeah. Regardless of what his actual thoughts were, I honestly think that in terms of what has happened with AEW as a company thus far, that was by far the worst face that they've ever
Yeah.
put out there. I don't think that Tony Khan listened to Swole's podcast, which I encourage everyone to do to get the actual full perspective of what she meant,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what was on the dirt sheets and what was on the like the news sites, that entire narrative was twisted so quickly and really was not a true reflection of what her actual kind of like critiques were of the company.
Yeah.
And I think he had a knee-jerk reaction. I think he read the headline and just fired that off and thought that for some reason people would support him,
Yeah.
and that just wasn't, it was tone
It
deaf
was,
to what her actual gripe with the
yeah.
company was.
Well, it was very gaslighty. The whole like, look, we have
Yeah.
all these people of color, and you just suck as a wrestler. It was very gaslighty, and that scares me that he has the ability to have that, even as a trigger response, to
Yeah.
have that response. That's the other thing that scares me about him being a booker, like the only booker. Um, but if that's the only thing AEW like, that's the black cloud for them. Like if that's the thing, they're doing well. Because I mean, WWE just had like the big scandal with the plane ride from hell, and that's not even close to the worst thing that's happened at that company.
Right. Right.
It's not even close.
Yeah, Vice
So
has been pretty good at pointing any like all the skeletons they have like tried to forget about.
yeah, yeah, they have more skeletons forgotten about than they have that are out there. But I
Yeah.
mean, they've also had a huge head start on them. But if A&W can keep their nose clean, it'll be good for them. And even though I'm not a huge fan, I do still watch it because, like I said, the product, it's like the matches themselves. And I'm a huge Adam Cole fan. I think Adam
Hmm.
Cole is the next Shawn Michaels, as far as I'm concerned. I think he really just has it. Kenny Omega is somebody who I had kind of seen here and there because I didn't get to watch a lot of New Japan, but I had heard about him and I had seen some highlights. And getting to see him work is phenomenal. How he can go, like, there's a great cast. The Young Bucks, uh, the Lucha Brothers, Jurassic Express.
Yeah, I would say even like Best Friends, for as goofy as
Yeah,
their kind of gimmick is,
that
they
Trent
make
Matt,
it work.
the Trent what's his name this past week on Rampage?
Yeah,
That
Trent Beretta.
Yeah, that was
Mm.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
That was such a good match. So they have a lot of great workers. It's about, and they've done some long term storytelling. Um, they've also done some very like knee jerk storytelling, like the whole
Punk and
uh
Kingston.
yeah. Then there was the Dante Martin joining Team Taz only a week
Yeah.
later turn on him thing, and
Hmm.
I do blame part of that on Leo Rush because he left again. Um, he's that's a weird story there. I hope he's
Yeah,
doing all
I
right.
think he's another one of those guys that his his reaction to Tony Khan's knee jerk reaction was just. I feel like he saw that and just kind of went off of like, well, okay, if we're just going to be out there with it, then here I go, and now he's kind of in the situation he's in.
Yeah. Yeah. Dices and Dishes. Hello from Orlando, Florida. Hello to you. Yes, I love the Lucha Bros as well, and it would be cool if they picked up parts of Triple H's crew to start booking. Like Regal would be a huge asset backstage. Yeah, Regal would be amazing. However, I don't think Regal is going to sign with AEW. Now, at the same time, I never thought that Big Show or Mark Henry would, but their exit was a little more blah. Like, I know that Regal getting released was very much like out of nowhere, but it wasn't like he was treated like crap before getting released. Like, the Big Show and Mark Henry had those terrible segments with Randy Orton where they were basically just diminished to nothing and then told to go away. Um, William Regal, on the other hand, was treated with respect the whole time and just like, hey, we're just going a new direction, you know, so we're going to let you go. And with what he said on his exit and the things he said since, I just don't see him going to AEW. I could see him maybe going to like a big independent and helping out, but I just don't see him going to AEW. I do feel like he is a true lifer at this point, mainly not because of Vince, but because of Triple H. Like, unless Triple H told him, it's like, hey, no, it's cool, go do what you got to do. But I'm sure there would be a conversation. Also, I know William Regal does want that WWE Hall of Fame. He does want that, and he wouldn't want to jeopardize that. Well, like, yeah, or AEW make it worth his while, maybe, but I don't know. There's enough money. Like, he's okay.
Yeah, I can't see William Regal jumping ship to anybody. He might do something with larger independent promotions, if in the UK or something like that, just so he can maybe be the bridge between some of the US promotions and them. But I agree with you that he's definitely the Hall of Fame, entry for him would be that'd be the perfect bow on his career. And he's done so much for WWE in so many different facets, being a really good heel, being an absolute, clown at certain points, and then also just kind of being a kind of whether it's on screen or behind the scenes for NXT. I think he owes, like, I agree with you. I think he owes too much to Triple H, and I think that in the event of Vince giving the reins off to someone else, and it wind up being Triple H, he's not going to want to step on that relationship by going to work for competition.
Exactly.
Especially how AEW can be vocal about WWE.
Yeah. I think a little too much,
Mhm.
but Dices and Dishes says I can see Regal doing a short time helping out with Impact. Now, see, that one would make sense to me because this is a good jumping off point to the Rumble. Impact is obviously working with WWE now. They had a working relationship with AEW, and then it just suddenly kind of went away in a weird way. It just kind of like after Christian lost the belt, Impact hasn't been talked about since. Nobody's been there since. It just kind of went away. And in time, in turn, we now have Mickey James, the current knockout champion for Impact, who's going to be in the Royal Rumble. We also know that the Inspiration, formerly the Iconics, were also asked about the Rumble and they turned it down. But WWE is finally dipping their toe in the forbidden door, as it were, with Impact. So I think Impact would be a place that Regal could like work and not burn a bridge.
Yeah,
Now,
I think that's likely.
now the rumor is out there with other dirt sheets. Now, I want to make something very clear about dirt sheets. There's a reason they're called dirt sheets because it's full of shit. It's shoveling manure most of the time. Even Dave Meltzer and Sean Ross Sapp with Fightful, those guys they don't bat 1,000. Okay, and a lot of times they're just reporting on rumors they're heard, or they hear something from a low end producer, and it has to be something they run with. And I get it, working for like in comic book movies in that realm that I work in, I sometimes have to run with a rumor, but I also make it very clear it's a rumor. And I will say that Sean Ross Sapp is very good about, hey guys, just a rumor, but this is what I heard. Dave Meltzer, not so much. I have my issues with him. It is what it is. Uh, so Mickey James is supposedly not the only one coming over from somewhere. There's at least supposed to be a male contestant that's going to be coming over from somewhere. And of course, all the names dropped. Like Moxley's name was dropped, and the fact that Seth Rollins or Seth freaking Rollins now.
Yeah.
Normally WWE drops names and goes down to one. The fact that they added freaking as an official name for him, that was weird.
Yeah, and then you have to say the full name.
Yeah, now you have to say it. But the fact that he dropped Mox in a promo and not Ambrose in the promo,
Mm-hmm.
I thought was and I think that might have also been Seth kind of trolling the situation because I personally don't think anybody from AEW is coming.
No, neither do I.
I just don't think that they have a relationship there yet. They're
No.
again, and part of that is because what have they done? They have done nothing but bash WWE unless it's MJF. MJF is the smartest one of everybody in AEW because he has done nothing but praise WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And it is part of his heel gimmick because he's talking about, well, my contract's coming up. I could jump ship. But it's also the fact that if for some reason in 2024 he realizes that, wait a minute, maybe it is good I jump ship, he has now set the groundwork that he could jump ship and have no bad ties. But who, like, who, I want to know who you think might be the person coming. Like, who would be, or let me know your dream pick and who you honestly think it is.
My dream pick, if it could be anybody,
Mm-hmm.
would I mean CM Punk would be definitely in that conversation just because it would be the biggest kind of like, I found a way back and it wasn't through you type of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Also, man, anybody, I would honestly, I would jump 6 feet out of my seat for someone like Danhausen, just because I think it would just add
That
some
would be
sort of real,
insane.
yeah, like how the hilarity that could come from that. I think I would love, uh, even someone like Bray Wyatt, and just like that kind of like, what have you been doing? Oh, you're like, holy crap, like this, you're doing all these like really weird vignettes and no one knows where you're going, and it wound up, you're just taking a mental health thing or whatever, and you can come back and have a new version of your character or whatever it is that was working with him. Who do I think it is going to be? I know the dirt sheets have been saying it a lot, which like you said, take it with a grain of salt. Moose, because it's the male, it's a male champion. He's the most, like, if they're having the champions appear, it's most likely going to be him. Heath, Rhino, Big Cass, Braun Strowman, EC3, any of those people that still have like a somewhat positive relationship, while no longer working there, they're all on the table. Although I do think it is going to be Moose. I'd like to see Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis would be great,
Oh
just
God.
because Mickey's she's a producer for NWA, and
Yeah.
then if NWA was the avenue, even though he's a former tag team champion in WWE, and that's but it. Trevor Murdoch coming out now
Yeah.
would be insane for probably Smarks, and that's like, and everyone else would be like,
Yeah.
who the fuck is that guy?
It'd be a weird, like you'd hear a weird pop because like probably like a third of the audience at the arena would go nuts, and the other third would be so silent because they have no idea who he is.
No idea who he is, or like, who's this
Um,
guy dressed like Harley Race?
it's like what did somebody let the janitor in? What happened? Um, yeah, I think it's probably gonna be Moose too. I would love Nick Aldis, but I think that Nick has been very adamantly against WWE since Mickey's, like, he's been a little vocal, but Mickey having such a great relationship could possibly like, hey, look, just would you apologize when you get there? We can do this. It'll be big for NWA, whatever. I think that if WWE could work with NWA, that would be huge. I
Yeah.
think that'd be massive, and it would also it would also help NWA rise up to bigger than what it is. Um, I've heard the Braun Strowman and I've heard the Bray Wyatts. Moose is probably, I think you're right with the Moose thing. Like that to me seems to like just the champion they'd want to push. As far as who I'd want it to be, which Future makes a great, if he thinks it could be Jericho if it was anybody from AEW, just because after the podcast. But I mean, Jericho's also been a little vocal against WWE recently, kind of passive aggressively, but he's still kind of been like, and so I don't know. Um, he does make a great point though. If you did bring Punk in, I think you also bring MJF in to further their feud and have MJF not
Mm-hmm.
even actually in the Rumble, but come out, throw him out because everything's legal at that point, and then he can run off. I think that would be cool, but that would also be the biggest push for AEW ever. So I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Also, I still think that I think the Punk, he just said something just the other day.
Yeah, he was signing after a show, and they were like, "You're gonna be in the Royal Rumble." He's like, "No." He's like, "Not a chance."
He also came out about Wrestlers Court and he called it like big, small dick energy, and he buried like you're burying the Undertaker at that point, like because he
Oh
was
yeah, here's the thing with CM Punk, because like you were talking about it, and me being from Chicago and everything. Me and most of the people that are into wrestling like I am, we like CM Punk the wrestler, we like CM Punk the character. CM Punk the person is an entirely different story. The interactions, all of the interactions stories that have come out about him with fans in the United Center or on in Wicker Park when he lived there and everything. Granted, some of those people were overstepping boundaries and shoving shit in his face to get him to sign it, or coming up and basically getting in the way of his workout or whatever. But some of the reaction, like all of the reactions of him being a complete and total tool to those people, is 100% true.
yeah.
And like that, there are people from this, Chicago has its problems. It's my favorite city. I would never not want to live here unless I got a job in Canada or something. I can get, live dreams and hockey and all that up there.
Yeah.
But
Tampa Bay Lightning, go Bolts. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
But I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan just because of everything. I had to step away from the Hawks, but
I grew up a Maple Leafs fan, actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And there are two types of people from Chicago. There are the people that are just like the salt of the earth, blue collar workers, and there's people like CM Punk. And it's really I would 100, like if they told me that you were meeting, like I was meeting a wrestler that is active, not necessarily on TV in his case, but like active and on TV, for one of the two major promotions, I would wish 100 times over that it was Mustafa Ali and not CM Punk, because I would have a much better conversation with Mustafa Ali than CM Punk.
Yeah. Quick story about back in my independent wrestling days. I don't know if you've ever seen the meme of CM Punk yelling at a stripper.
No, I haven't seen that in a while.
We had this show, and it was in a kind of warehouse that was attached to a strip club, because Tampa is the strip club capital next to, I think there's actually more strip clubs in Tampa than there are in Vegas. And so the fight, he was having a street fight with somebody. I can't remember who it was to save my life. I don't even think they did much after that. And they went through the double doors into the strip club. And the stripper's up there, and she's literally like sliding on the pole, legs fully spread eagle, and he just yells at her, you dumb fucking whore. He's yelling at her, and that became the meme. And I was at that show. I worked that show, and that's when I first worked with him on two different shows. And I worked that show, then I worked with him on FIP. And this was before there was even rumblings of him going to WWE. That guy, his ego was insane. He insisted on his own locker room, and we didn't have a locker room. We had literally a partition. I mean, it's the Independents. Like, we're not that show especially was not a huge show. None of us got paid because it all had to go to Punk because of his asking price. So all of us got shafted. He laughed about that. He wouldn't talk to anybody. I know the guy he worked with in the show, he said, I'll call the match. You just sell your ass off, or I'm going to hit you for real. He was just, it was this whole thing. And then when I worked at FIP, he wasn't the man. Bryan Danielson was. Bryan Danielson was champion. Punk wasn't even in the championship race at the time, and he hated it. And he was very vocal about it. Again, insisted on his own locker room, which they did give him. But because it wasn't soundproof, he was pissed about that because he could hear us. All this is, it's just a terrible human being. So I've never liked the guy, but I will never discount his mic abilities, which, by the way, the pipe bomb. Okay. I don't know if I should put this out there. I know some things about the pipe bomb that would change the perspective on a lot of people, but at the same time, I don't want to out anybody. So I'm not going to say it, but just, I'll lay that groundwork because you probably figure out where I was going with it. I'll put it this way. I thought it was really ironic that he always bashes on The Rock for having somebody write his promos. I'll just put it that way. Okay. I'll leave it there. But, he's still fantastic on the mic. Like this stuff with him in MJF has been very good. And he's a decent worker. I think he's lost a step, but also being gone for 7 years,
Yeah.
that'll do it to you. I mean, hell, look at Edge. Like, look at what he had to do to get back, and look at what his first match with Randy Orton was purposely a Falls Count Anywhere hardcore match because it covered up so much ring rust.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then when they had the greatest wrestling match of all time, you still saw the ring rust.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sad. So being gone that long obviously has a toll, but I just, yeah. So I appreciate what I very much appreciate what he's done for AEW. Because
I think there's a trade-off there, though. Look at what he's able to do. Like I was at the United Center when he returned. I was at the Wintrust Center.
That must have been insane.
I've been in there for playoff hockey and it hasn't been that loud. That was everybody. That entire place was sold out from top to bottom. I mean, there was no nothing. It was from the moment that Dark Elevation started, the chant started then, and they're like, oh, okay, the show's gonna start. And I was sitting there and like, if they don't open with him, then this place is going to explode and they're going to shit on whoever is on before the inevitable happens. And then at the Wintrust a couple months ago, and I'll be there. I'll be at the Wintrust again on Wednesday next week for Dynamite. And almost as important as him being on TV and the capacity that he is what he does after and is after the show. He comes down to the ring, cuts another promo, and walks around and high fives and signs stuff for people. And I think that feeds the ego that he looks for. He wants to be in a room with a lot of people cheering his name.
Yeah.
And that's where he gets, and they're able to give that to him. He also will bring somebody, someone else from the back out to dual promo with him or whatever, not against each other, but like give them a moment. And I think that's what he gets off on. And that's kind of like the give and take. I think that's the best thing he's been given by AEW because it's going to keep him happy long term. And the feuds that he's been in, like even the match with Darby Allin, I was watching that and I'm like, oh man, like he's got it, but there's a lot of things going on here that are not your typical like what I would want from like a CM Punk match.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like homage stuff going on, which is fine. That happens in wrestling all the time. And there was, a bit of ring rust there. Ultimately that was to Darby Allin's an up and coming, like the leading up and coming guy in AEW. So we're going to throw CM Punk against him. Does CM Punk still got it to beat the kid, or does the kid beat the old man who's been gone? Should he stayed gone, blah, whatever. You answer that question. Then you turn around and you send Frankie to him in QT and all that, which doesn't ultimately mean anything. Everyone beats those guys on the way in.
Yeah.
And then you get Eddie Kingston, and like the promos were good. They were really fast.
They were great. And Eddie was speaking the truth.
Oh yeah.
Because Eddie was there like during those times. Like I've worked a few shows with Eddie as well. And like, yeah, Eddie was speaking. Like I remember popping so hard for what Eddie was saying because I was like, I know that's true. I know what he's saying is true, and I know he doesn't actually like Punk. I know it. Like I felt it and I knew it, and I popped for that so hard. And in that match, just the way it ended, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of. I felt the same way. That I was kind of just like, man, all that build up for just kind of like the knockout at the very beginning before the bell. I was like, oh, and like it made Eddie look really good.
Yeah, it made him look real good.
But like after that, it was like, well, CM Punk's gonna win in his boxers. Like that's it is what it is. But yeah, like you could definitely tell Eddie Kingston had some stuff he wanted to say to CM Punk and got to do it.
There was a real animosity.
And it kind of like, oh yeah, like I from what you were just saying and from what I've heard from people over the years and what I've read on the internet, it just seems like he just the ego is a huge problem. I can't even imagine that like soundproof dressing room thing in an indie. Like, come on. But yeah, like being able to air that grievance is something that's great because that would never would have happened anywhere else.
So here's a great question. Future asks, since we're on the topic of Punk, do you think he'll put over MJF? I think he should, but I'm not sure if he will. Okay, so I definitely think he should. I think MJF should be the one to end his undefeated career, especially since they've already kind of laid the seed for the, for lack of a better term, 50-50 booking in that Punk cost MJF his undefeated year already with the disqualification. I don't know if CM Punk's ego will allow it. I'm sure he has 100% creative control over his character in part of his contract and coming back. Because if you I don't know if you knew heard about this, but he actually talked to AEW, approached him back when they were doing the first All In before they even had a TV show about coming back, and they threw a ludicrous amount of money at him, and he turned it down and took the Fox deal to be on Fox Backstage because they threw a ludicrous amount of money at him and he didn't have to show up all the time and he could do what he wanted. So obviously a renegotiation was done, a long talk. I'm almost certain he has 100% creative control.
Has to.
Yeah, so like, do you think he'll put MJF over?
I was really sure that he was going to until he cost him the what could have been the undefeated 2022, right? So I was in the right mind of if anyone is going to, because MJF's got heat all the time, right? He lives that character all the time. He'll charge you $150 for a picture and it's only half of his face. He'll be a dick to kids, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, if you want to continue the nuclear heat train that you're building on MJF, you haven't beat CM Punk.
Yeah.
And if you can, or however it falls, you haven't beat him here.
Haven't beat him in Chicago.
Yes.
And have him cheat to do it.
Right. And
pull the tie,
have
foot on the rope, whatever.
Right. And plus AEW is getting in the they're in the win trust now. They're going to be doing that for a while. They'll eventually go to the United Center, I think, at some point, because they can sell that place out.
Yeah.
But I think that I think that Punk is going to wind up winning because the undefeated streak for MJF has already been kind of taken off the table. And that sucks. It really does. Yeah. Because the nuclear heat, whatever is next for MJF, which I have a feeling now, because if he loses to Punk, or if he loses to Punk, the next possible thing I can only see him going to is having the feud with Wardlow they've been building in the background.
Yeah.
And I don't want CM Punk to be the guy that pushes MJF into a feud with Wardlow. I want MJF to beat Punk, have the nuclear heat that goes with that, and then really do some shitty shit to the point where, okay, now he has to lose and he winds up blaming the entire thing on Wardlow. I think Punk would have been the last great person for him to beat.
Yeah.
And then go down that route. And I just don't think it's very possible that it could still happen. But I think that MJF might wind up just, taking the loss and moving on to the feud with Wardlow.
I think, to me, what would be the best storytelling here would be that Wardlow and MJF have a bit of a falling out. Not a match, but a falling out. Even to the point where Wardlow, literally leaves MJF in a match. He, leaves his side or whatever. MJF's, he slaps him or something and he walks off. Maybe he power bombs him and leaves. And, oh, they've broken up, whatever. He's not going to be. And then Wardlow comes out. Maybe, MJF pulls the diamond ring out. Wardlow comes out during the CM Punk MJF match, stops him from using the diamond ring, takes it from him, but then he clocks Punk, and the whole thing was a work the whole time. The Wardlow MJF thing, that to me would be great. You build it up, because it very much right now it's reading a lot like the Virgil $1 Million Man story, which was a great long-term storytelling back in the 80s that led to Virgil being nothing, and it didn't help him, and he is a complete weirdo now. But I think to do the double swerve, oh, we're building them breaking up. No, now Wardlow's going to cost him the match against CM Punk. No, he cost CM Punk the match. It turns out it was a work the whole time. I think that would
Yeah.
be a phenomenal story. Um, it would get not only nuclear heat on MJF, it would also this slow building babyface that's coming to Wardlow. Like people are starting to get behind him. Instant nuclear heat for him too, and then the Pinnacle can stay the Pinnacle. Because that's the weird thing about AEW is that they have these factions, and then these factions don't do anything.
Yeah.
They
That's a
don't.
huge problem with them.
Nothing comes of them.
I mean, even look at the Pinnacle, the FTR are all over the place. They're in various feuds, doing various different things. Sean Spears is caught up in the shuffle of everything else that's going on. They really haven't found anything to do with him. Which kind
I
of,
feel like he's getting buried more than he did when he was.
oh yeah, there's
Uh.
literally no difference. Like,
Yeah, like Ty Dillinger. Like he was. At least with Ty Dillinger, he actually got like I remember him coming out to the Rumble and people went nuts. Like
yeah,
there was at least some some pop for him then. Now it's just like, and then getting beaten in 10 seconds by CM Punk. Like what
yeah,
the hell?
not even really being effective in the kind of feud or whatever that he's participating in. Even the stuff with the inner circle, it was
Yeah,
kind of like, oh, they needed a guy, so
he
they're
was a
like, you know
body. He was a
what,
body.
yeah,
And
like we're gonna put,
I feel bad for him because this is got to be affecting his wrestling school. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Flatback wrestling with him and Tyler Breeze. Like I can imagine you going there and going, "Oh, you're the guy who is doing nothing."
yeah.
Like, how are you going to tell me how to get over? Like, like because you're not. At least Breeze got over. Like. But I do feel bad. Future mentioned I am a Punk fan, but this happy to be here. I'm gonna Hogan beat everyone. Story is getting old. Yeah, yeah. And he's actually said that, so that kind of pisses me off too. Um, yeah. I think the faction thing. I think that there was maybe a. What bothers me about AEW is that it feels like they're going the route of WCW. Like they're almost following the WCW playbook play by play.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's going and it scares me because we obviously know how the WCW one ended. And they're starting now on the positive side, they have not created necessarily an NWO that ends up taking over.
Mhm.
That it goes from this cool thing to just too much. But instead they have so many factions and they do nothing. Like he brought up Death Triangle. Where did that go?
Yeah,
I
the
understand
Nightmare
like
Factory. Yeah.
yeah, they mention a Nightmare Factory all the time, but now it's more of this is where it's a school. It's more of like a school talk. It's not a faction
Right.
anymore. QT Marshall and his like the Gun Club is kind of doing something with Christian, but then you had like the Pinnacle. They say the Pinnacle, but is there a Pinnacle left? It's just the three guys. Like it's in like even the Inner Circle, which is falling apart, but it should have fell apart probably a while ago. Like I don't know. It feels like. And then there's always that talk about the trios match title, like the trios titles. I
Right.
kind of
Which
think maybe they
they
shouldn't
don't
do.
have enough television time for that.
Yeah, I
They
think maybe
barely
they
have
shouldn't
enough
do.
television time for a TBS championship.
Yeah. Kings of the Black Throne is now a new thing that somebody brought up, which I mean that works because it's a tag team right now, and if they just keep it a tag team. Just keep it those two.
Yeah, they don't need to add anybody, even though like
Which,
they
by
were
the way,
teasing.
what the hell was with Cody burying Brody King?
Yeah, the promo was weird, man. I
Yeah,
didn't
what
like.
the hell? Like, dude, he's
He's
your
like, oh,
brand new
how
talent.
can you walk into here with a name like Brody and stuff like that? And I was like, damn, like you just really put the spotlight on this guy
Because
who
he's been
debuted
using
last
that
week.
name. He's been using that name for 20 years, maybe. That's why. Like, dude. You know what's funny? I
That
realized
whole promo was strange.
it was very strange. I realized something not too long ago, and I felt really bad for not realizing this. But uh, I had actually worked a show with with Brody Lee. He was doing a oh god, oh his name just escaped. Brody, the one who was killed in Cuba. Brody, he got stabbed by supposedly
Bruiser Brody.
Bruiser Brody. Thank you. Jeez, why did that escape my head? He was doing a gimmick similar to that, and he came into the show, and we had a guy Um, I'm not gonna say his name because he's still working the indies, and I don't want to. He has since changed from that time, but he kind of had that Punk mentality, but with far less success than Punk ever had. Um, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm not doing the job. I'm not going to do the job. I'm not going to do that. We're going to do this, this, and this." He was going against somebody who already had 20 years in the business. He had worked for WWE, had worked for WCW, and he was this new independent guy, and he was trying to like say, "This is what we're going to do." So like, oh, you know what? You're going to go up against Brody here, and it was John. It was John Huber, and I didn't realize it until I called my old trainer and the guy who ran that show, Buck Quartermain. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He worked a lot of like mid card in the WWE and WCW through the 80s and 90s. Um, I trained at Steve Kern's School of Hard Knocks before it became FCW and then became NXT. And he was my head trainer. And I called him up. I'm like, because I found some old footage from the show previous to that one, but then it just clicked in my head. I'm like, wait a minute, was that? And he goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, that was John. I'm like, holy shit. But he went out there. And so he goes out to the match and like, they don't play any music, nothing. And he just walks out there and he literally just grabbed the guy by the head and started just beating the shit out of him. And all he's yelling is like, what's the finish? What's the finish, David? What's the finish? And he's beating the shit out of him.
Oh man.
It was like, oh my God. And I was like, it was basically just one of those times where you know, sometimes in the business you had, you know, these old school guys put the guys in their place. And that was him. And I was like, oh man. I felt really bad about not realizing that I was on a show with him and worked with him because he was such a backstage when I'd met him. Now I'm 5'8", 5'9" in wrestling boots. I was 170 pounds when I wrestled. I was like Darby Allin size. Obviously, John's huge.
Oh yeah.
Massive dude. Big, huge beard. Long hair. He looked almost exactly, he had like the fur vest. He looked almost exactly like Bruiser Brody. Had the fur boots, the whole nine. Just a mountain of a man. Very intimidating just from looking at him. But the nicest guy. So funny. He was so cool. But when he flipped that switch, oh my God. Oh my God. He beat the shit out of that guy. And I remember like people in the crowd going, yeah. Oh no. Oh no. This got real. Oh no. Split him hard way the whole night. Oh, it was bad. But the guy learned his lesson and he humbled out after that.
See, that's good. That's what that's there for.
I don't necessarily recommend that nowadays as a way to handle somebody, but I'm just saying if you did. So yeah, I think that like that Cody promo was insane. I don't know where he was going with any of it. It's just weird stuff. Let's jump back to WWE and the Royal Rumble. We kind of talked about Forbidden Door, who we'd like to see, but the Rumble is always full of surprises. It's always full of legends, that come back. Who are some legends that you want to see?
Oh man. So I think for the women's Rumble, the legends were spoiled in addition to the Bella Twins and Summer Rae. So I think like Michelle McCool is going to be in that already. I'd like to see like Trish Stratus and Lita are always cool to see show up in that. I think Tori Wilson's done it every year that they've done it so far.
Yeah.
For the men, I would like to see just like obscure stuff that, you know, really isn't so much like a Hall of Famer. Like, you know, they've had the Hall of Famers come in. They've, you know, they had Goldberg, they had Edge. I just want to see something weird, like just some like why, like when they brought the Thrasher and Mosh back to SmackDown, like that was strange. I want something like that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, like the music hits and it's like it's Glacier, or it's like something just like why, and just let them go do their thing and get eliminated. Yeah. I don't know. Like there's legends wise, there just is we're in a really weird in between period because you have a lot of guys that are too old and you have a lot of guys that are of the like the Attitude Era that are still actively doing other things in other like indie promotions or doing what they can where they can't do it. You know, like there's just you're really getting in this kind of gray area because of the longevity of wrestlers as like careers and what they can do physically.
Yeah.
So something like Kevin Nash would be cool, but like realistically, there really isn't anyone.
Kevin Nash probably get hurt.
Right? Yeah, or blow quads. As
Yeah.
soon as he hits the ring. But it's just like that entire era of that would now be kind of taking that place as legends who could come in. The list is kind of short in terms of like who people would instantly know.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I think Paige is she's rumored, but she's rumored every year. But like, I think she has gotten cleared. Unless that's also a rumor, so I can't put a lot of weight on that. But I think Paige would be cool. I did find it weird that they announced what they announced with the women's, like
Yeah,
Summer
me too.
Rae, and even like the Mickey James one. Actually, like at first I thought it was weird they announced it, but it actually makes sense because it's now a huge talking point. So I get that one. But like even Summer Rae was like, oh, I didn't realize they were gonna announce that. But they didn't announce her the previous 2 years, and she just came out to somewhat fanfare. I think by announcing her, it actually helps her get a little bit more of a pop when she does come out, because she's also started a Twitter feud with Natalia. So it's built to something. So I think there's something there. I think like now, obviously not. Asuka's a future legend, but I think her and Bailey, I think, might pop in. The biggest rumor.
Bailey's still got the ACL, right? So I think she's got a couple more months to go on that, unless she got good early, got cleared early.
Yeah, well, they said that it was more likely February or March, but there is a chance she'll be ready by the Rumble.
Nice.
So I'm not. If she comes out, it'd be great. I'd love to see it, but I'm not counting on that one. Asuka, I am counting on.
Yeah, Asuka and Lacey Evans, I think.
Yeah, Lacey Evans, Ronda Rousey. I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt about her, which would be amazing. Yep. I think that Ronda had one of the best. I mean, she only went for a year, but I mean, she had one of the best years ever. She gravitated to it so quickly, largely in part to not only Natalia but Brian Kendrick, who trained her. But she really nailed it, and I think she really got it. And I would love to see her, but also at the same time, like, she just had a baby in September. Like, I'm not in any rush. Yeah. Like, take your time. Like, that's a huge deal. Like, it's a lot to come back from. I remember, like, when Becky Lynch had the baby in December, they're like, oh, she'll be fine by January. Dude, she had the baby a month ago. Yeah. Chill out.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
On the men's side, I could see Scotty 2 Hotty. He asked for his release because he felt like he had more active time in him. And he is not signed purposely with any other company except for a couple independent stuff. Like, so I could see him making an appearance, which would be really cool. My 99% not going to happen, but my dream would be to see Shawn Michaels. He is still in shape, and it would be a much better final legacy than what happened in Saudi Arabia. In that tag match.
That's definitely true.
And that's a match he would be safe in. He could come in, be in there for like half an hour and be fine. Like, he could do it and just, it would be cool to see. So I think Shawn Michaels would be my dream one. Before he got cut, I thought William Regal might make an appearance. But it's harder to say on the guy side for sure, because they've had so many. Like, Carlito was so cool last year, and he was in fantastic shape awesome. Too. He was in such good shape.
Yeah.
He looked better than ever. But yeah, I don't know. There's some, like, maybe Funaki. I don't know. Like, it's weird now. We're in a weird period. Like, Santino Marella will probably show up because he just tends to show up at Rumbles.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody that would be like a huge, maybe Devon, because he's still working there.
Yeah, Devon would be interesting. I think, like, when you get to this kind of area that we're at now, it's like, man, Funaki would be pretty awesome. That'd be pretty great.
Yeah.
I think that when you're in this kind of weird period, it's nuts. If you look at the people that are already announced for the Rumble, you have you have all the tag teams, which none of those people are going to win.
Yeah, of course.
The Mysterios, I think, are going to set up their match in the Royal Rumble, or either that or AJ and Omos are going to set up their match at the next pay-per-view or at the WrestleMania, however that winds up going, because they have to blow that off. And like the space that's left over, I'm like, well, you're going to have all of your singles competitors that, you're going to have your Nakamura's and your Rick Boogs and your like, I know Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are already announced, Johnny Knoxville, all that sort of shit. But you're kind of
I'm
like,
actually
where,
super
what,
excited about that, by the way.
the
About
Johnny
Johnny,
Knoxville?
yeah, just because he'll
I,
take the most insane bump.
yeah, I think he's gonna go. I think he's gonna get thrown out of the match, like into the announce table or something.
Yeah, like he's
Just
gonna take an
something, yeah,
insane
something
bump.
big.
He'll
Yeah.
eliminate Sami Zayn,
Hmm.
and part of the reason I realized this the other day, Nakamura's still hurt. I don't think he's gonna be in the Rumble.
Oh.
That's why they haven't had the match for the Intercontinental title yet. And that's why he hasn't defended it.
Mm.
Because he's been hurt. That's why he's been doing tag matches with Rick Boogs, and Rick Boogs doing most of the work, which that dude's a beast. I
Yeah.
love him. Now he's with the short hair, he looks like Freddie Mercury, which is amazing. It's like Freddie Mercury on steroids. So I don't think he'll be in it, and that's why this is giving Sami Zayn something to focus on that people aren't realizing. Hey, he hasn't gotten his title shot yet because this whole thing, and I think the Insane thing has been hilarious. So I think Johnny Knoxville, I think he'll be in there. It'll probably be early, but he'll be in there, I think, longer than just a few seconds. And I think that
Yeah.
he will eliminate Zayn, and then somebody will, like maybe Omos will pick him up and throw him into the announce table or something. But yeah, he's going to take a nasty bump. I'm disappointed Xavier Woods got hurt because he won't be in it, but Kofi's going to be in it. There's only, I think right now there's only 8 spots left out of what's been announced.
Yeah.
So we don't
So
have
you'd imagine Moose, Moose, your Forbidden Door guy is going to be one of them.
Yeah.
And oh, man, I just had someone that popped in my head. Oh, the large Indian gentleman that they tease every year or every
Veer?
yeah, Veer. Like if Veer debuts at the Royal Rumble, that's what he's been coming to the entire time.
Yeah.
He's been slowly walking from the PC all the way there, and it's taken him to the Royal Rumble to officially enter a WWE ring.
WWE is fully aware that they messed up by starting those vignettes, and they are now fully aware that it is a running joke.
Yeah.
What was most funny is that there's a guy on NXT who's now Waller's, like, I guess, bodyguard, who people thought was Veer's. Because he's just a big Indian dude with a beard, and they're like, "Oh, Veer's, he made a wrong turn and ended up on NXT, and it's not Veer's." But also, that would be funny if Veer showed up, mainly because they've been saying he's been going to be coming to Raw, and he shows up at the Rumble, which is not Raw, and then he doesn't show up on Raw the next night.
Yeah, that's it.
And they go back to coming to Raw.
Push effort.
Yeah, I just think I think that would be hilarious. Yeah, I don't know, because like you said, Moose, maybe Scotty Too Hottie. I really do think he'll be there.
Would be really too, like, I mean, you'd have to do them back to back, and they wouldn't go anywhere. Deuce and Domino would be pretty great. Although I think is one of them dead? I don't know.
Oh, I think one of them is.
But whichever,
yeah, I think one of them died of an overdose.
Yeah, I think one of the RIP, but like I think one of them, but that would have been like, I would have been like, what? Or
what about the FBI?
Yeah, well, the FBI would be great. Vito would be great. I'd love to see that.
Nunzio.
Yeah.
And Vito, like, I saw him recently on Instagram. Yeah, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
That dude is still massive.
Oh yeah. Does some podcast work with Love Panda?
I was getting ready to say, doesn't he do podcast work with Love Panda? We should have Love Panda be like, hey, ask a question. Is he going to be in it? Yeah, it's hard to pick. Of course, there's also the rumor that the Undertaker will be in attendance at the Royal Rumble. Now, I don't necessarily think he'll be in the Royal Rumble. I do believe he'll probably come out, cut some kind of promo. I think he is. I understand people like, oh, he's already retired. I'm like, yeah, but he retired in front of no one.
Yeah,
he's owed a proper retirement, not necessarily a retirement match, but maybe have him come out, cut a promo, because he's also involved with the WWE 2K22 game. So maybe he does something for that at the Royal Rumble, and then maybe at like WrestleMania, somebody's cutting like what he did to Elias that one time. Which, by the way, where is he? His last vignette was him in a gravestone and then nothing. Like, is he actually dead? Like, what happened? But maybe have somebody, maybe like Austin, if they don't push Austin Theory correctly, but maybe somebody out there maybe a Dolph Ziggler, somebody just cutting a stupid promo. He comes out, choke slams them, and then the whole nine says goodbye
Yeah.
in his way in front of the
Austin
crowd.
Theory would be probably the best guy for that, given what they've got going on with him. With with all the guys that have the stop start vignettes there, they don't go anywhere. I just assume now that they're going to come back. Like, I'm assuming that Elias is going to come back as Elias Lena, and then Veers will eventually
Yeah.
debut, and then eventually go right back to re-debut as themselves at some point.
Yeah.
But Austin Theory would be the guy. Like Austin, I admittedly did not like him very much in NXT, but I've been mildly entertained by what he's been doing on the main roster. The stuff with Vince is just kind of like, it's like almost like a fever dream, because Vince is
Yeah.
writing all that shit himself.
Yeah, it's very much
And
a
it's-
fever dream.
Yeah,
But
it's kind of
good,
just
but
like,
it's a good one.
yeah,
a good
it's just kind of like,
It started
it's
weird. I think it's part of it.
Uncanny Valley. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it started weird. The whole for the egg thing from Red Notice.
Yeah.
And I think that won't go away. Like, it's just kind of in the back of everybody's head. It's like, this all started over a fucking egg. Like, and then, like, what I loved was like, a lot of people tried to give Vince shit over, not this week, but last week, when he said that he would basically rip Austin apart and mutilate him and all that stuff. It's like, oh, didn't they just come out and say that they don't like the gratuitous mutilation of AEW? Vince never said that. That was some producer, and it was a quote from a low-level producer
Right.
that got slapped into the Toronto Times. Like, Vince never said that, so he's taking the ball and running with it. And like, it's also the fact that people are like, oh, he can't say anything. Do you remember the Attitude Era? Yeah, I do. That was over 20 years ago, and they don't do that anymore. And they've grown up from that. That's what kind of the point was. But yeah, it is a little weird, but I do think that it is pushing Austin properly, I think. I think that he's getting heat, but not like Roman Reigns heat, like where Roman got pushed and people hated him. I think he's getting proper heel heat. Although I don't think he should have lost to AJ Styles this past Monday.
Yeah.
Because you're not pushing AJ right now. Not that he needs a push. He's AJ Styles, which,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, another phenomenal guy in the business. I actually worked dark matches for TNT or TNA way back in the day when they were in Orlando exclusively. And I met AJ very early on in his career, before even his first X Division championship. And just a great dude, really cool dude. And always just has always been phenomenal. Always. He's just a great dude and just one hell of a worker. But like, he didn't need to go over there. Like, yeah, you have Austin cheat, but you have him win. Because now he didn't get his selfie, so Vince McMahon's gonna kill him. What do you do with that? I think it's just he's getting a good push, and it seems slow in the best possible way, but I do think the loss was a step back.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like looking at what they have kind of pooling around people, if Kevin Owens doesn't do it, I think Austin Theory will take the US title off Damian Priest, who Damian Priest is my pick for the Iron Man for this Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think they're going to make him just last. Like, he'll be in there from like 4 to 28 or 4 to 29, and he'll be in the final four. I have a feeling.
Yeah.
And then for the women, I think it's gonna be Liv Morgan. But the I like Austin Theory. I could see them getting to the point where like Vince gives him a U.S. title shot based on whatever it is they have going on, and then Theory wins it, and that's like either the culmination or the beginning of the end between him and McMahon or something like that.
Yeah.
Just because I think of like what they're building, what they're focusing on, he seems like the most likely candidate right now that could turn around and wind up beating Damian Priest for the title, and then Damian Priest can go on to the world title picture or whatever they decide to do with him.
Hopefully something good. I'm not a huge fan of this split personality gimmick. One, because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He just showed up with black eyeliner and a new entrance, and was suddenly Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that was weird. Right in the middle of his run with the championship too was also weird. I think that, and then like they missed the opportunity to make a bigger deal out of the fact that he was undefeated in singles competition. which they could have actually made something. They could have done something with that. Um, I think that Kevin Owens is going to end up beating him for the title. Because I originally like, see, I don't know what's going on with the World Championships. That's the most confusing to me right now. Ever since Roman got COVID and they had to make the switch and for some reason put the title on Brock, which I didn't understand. I'm not against it. I'm a huge Brock Lesnar fan.
Yeah, I when as soon as Lesnar got out of the match, I'm like, well, that's your winner, and
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there just wasn't like I would love to know what the original plan was. Was Big E going to just retain it, or were you going to put it on Lashley, or what it is that you were going to do? Because what could have spun out of any of those other scenarios other than Brock would have been interesting to see. But now with Brock, with the titles being split between the two shows, and then Brock is technically a free agent, so he can be on either one of them.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I really, really, really am against title unification matches because, especially right now with WWE, is that they're going to continue the Universal title and not the WWE Championship if that were to happen.
Yep.
And I don't like the Universal Championship is something that could be rebranded again. I've never liked the name. I've never liked the design of the title. It's just the same thing in a different color.
Yep.
I really hope that's not the route that they're going. I think that, the way the Rumble could possibly go are things like this too, where either Lesnar loses to Lashley and enters the Royal Rumble and wins it,
Yeah.
or Lashley loses and enters the Royal Rumble and win, to get Brock back on track to fighting Roman at WrestleMania. There's all that can happen. I really don't think that they're gonna have Seth beat Roman. It just wouldn't look right. And if anything, if they're going to go that route, it's going to be Bobby beating Brock. Brock goes in, wrecks the Royal Rumble, and then gets to fight Roman at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Like, I know, like, as far as what was supposed to happen, I know that Fightful Select has said that they were told that Seth was supposed to win the title. But there was a graphic that came out that showed the winner. It was like the winner's card that WWE themselves put out, or WWE on Fox put out. And it had Brock Lesnar as the winner of that match, but it still said winner Big E. Like they hadn't corrected the name in the thing yet. So at least according to them, it was supposed to be Big E. So I don't know where that was going to go. I'd like to see Big E win the Royal Rumble and get back on track because he deserves a much better title run than what he got.
Yeah.
And maybe Brock Lesnar loses to Bobby Lashley due to like Paul Heyman or something. And because I feel like Paul Heyman's going to turn on him at some point and go back to Roman Reigns. Because obviously Brock is not here for the long run. I just don't see that. Like, he's not going to become a weekly player for a year or two. So, and what that'll do is that Paul Heyman, it turns out the whole thing was a ruse. Paul Heyman does something to cost Brock Lesnar the match. Bobby becomes champion. Big E wins the Rumble. Bobby Lashley versus Big E at WrestleMania gives Big E the WrestleMania win. And Brock Lesnar going after both Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns now puts him back on track for Roman Reigns. So you wouldn't even have to have Lesnar in the Rumble necessarily. I think he put it on Big E. I think this is there's a way to get, you can still get, if Lesnar loses, I don't think you put him in the Rumble just because he doesn't need that to get back to Roman Reigns. Because
that's true.
They've made it very clear that he gets what he wants. So if he goes into Adam Pearce's office and says, I want Roman Reigns, he's getting Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
So I do hope they put it on somebody who needs that push. And I think Big E would need it because, again, he just didn't get the right kind of title reign. And I know a lot of people hate on Lesnar because he's not a full-timer. I love Brock Lesnar. And not just for the fact that he is a beast, but that dude sells his ass. If he likes you and he's invested in the match, he is one of the best sellers there is. He's so good. He really does get the psychology. And this new, like, kind of tweener babyface Brock, where he's on the mic more, has been great, and the fact that he's not taking this Lashley match seriously, like the weigh in, like I think that like I honestly think that he was told to be dressed like Lashley was, and that he's like, when do we ever do weigh-ins? This is stupid, and that
Yeah.
he just no, I'm gonna go out like this,
Hmm.
and like I just thought that whole thing. I feel like he's really good for business. He really is, and I think he's underappreciated just because he kind of gets what he wants,
Yeah.
and some people have an issue with that, but
Yeah.
he's
I think with, Brock is undoubtedly an attraction. That's, what he's there to do. A lot of people get caught up on him winning all the multiple championships, and the reigns only last anywhere between like 6 months to a year, depending on the story that they need him to serve and all that sort of stuff. Um, Loving him on the mic right now.
yeah,
The Corey Graves thing, whether he's like, you just want me to get naked, like he improvised that. I don't think that was something
yeah,
pre-written.
no,
I
it
think
was
he
not.
just fired that from the hip, and it like it's weird to say that like this is organic Brock Lesnar in a certain in a
Yeah,
certain light, and it's actually really fun. I'm really enjoying it compared to him showing up with Heyman again. Who Heyman screwed him over, less than a year ago. That's completely brushed under and no one remembers it.
yeah,
And, you just go right back in the same program. So kind of having this happy-go-lucky, funny, cartoony version of Brock is really kind of brought something a little bit, different. And it's definitely hit pretty well. It definitely plays really good against Bobby Lashley, who's like just pure testosterone, insanity, and intensity, where like Brock is just shrugging it off. That's why I think Brock might lose, is that like he's shrugging it off like it isn't a big deal. And then it'll wind up by the first couple minutes of the match. It'll be like, oh, this is for real for Brock. Like Lashley's really beating the shit out of him.
yeah. I kind of hope they get 20 minutes. I don't think
Yeah,
they
it'd be
will.
nice. Yeah.
I kind of hope they do. But on a Rumble night though, it's hard for any match to go that long,
Yeah, right.
just because there's two Rumbles now, and those are usually at least an hour.
Hmm.
So there's two of your 3 hours right there, and so we've got two title matches. You got I'm assuming a tag team match of some sort. I'm assuming that the Alpha Academy RKO thing will no, because they're not doing that thing till next Monday, so they're not
Yeah,
going to
because
have their match. Their whole
they're
Alpha.
all in the Rumble. Because I know they're in the graphic for the Rumble on Raw the other night, but
Yeah.
I don't think that I saw the Usos in there. It might have been, but I think that
Oh
I don't
no,
know if the Usos have a match.
the Usos and the Viking Raiders are not in the Rumble. Not that I know of. So maybe they'll have their match, but on the kickoff show.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like now, I'm trying to think what other matches do we have. I know we have the Raw Women's Championship. We don't have a SmackDown Championship because she's in the Rumble. Um, is that it for matches?
Wait, Charlotte's going into the Rumble?
Yeah, she wants to win it and pick her own WrestleMania opponent.
Oh, I
That's her
haven't watched
gimmick.
SmackDown and like, yeah, okay, I gotcha.
And then like they actually started a program with her and Lita because Lita came back on SmackDown and gave her the twist of fate.
Right, I heard about that. I was
Which,
at a
well,
show, that's
yeah,
why I didn't see it.
okay. Let's talk about the marks out there. Let's do that because wrestling TikTok and wrestling Twitter are fucking ridiculous. People try to have Lita canceled because she used the twist of fate after what Jeff Hardy went through and got fired. First of all, she has nothing to do with Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Second of all, Jeff Hardy seemingly basically faked his way out of getting fired so that he can go work with his brother because Matt has done nothing but talk about the fact that the Hardy Boys are getting back together soon.
Right.
And he's out there doing concerts and stuff and whatnot. And so it seems like he just walked out of the company. Like WWE thought he was having another relapse and offered him rehab, and he turned that down and said, no, I just want to go. And then all of a sudden he comes out and he's like, yeah, no, I'm good. And so that seems pretty shady. And that's on Jeff. That's not on Lita. Third, she's been doing the twist of fate as her finisher for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean the whole situation, especially on wrestling TikTok, because that started a whole big thing that's going on over there, was the fact that nobody knew what was going on with Jeff Hardy. No one knew what the exact real reason why he got pushed out of the house. He took himself out of the house show and then he left. And from when that news hit, I was at work and I opened TikTok to see if anyone was talking about it. And there were two creators, I won't name either one of them, that were both talking about it. And one of them was like, you know, Jeff Hardy's his favorite wrestler. So he's like, I don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. Don't, you know, it's like, there's
I know.
no.
Actually, know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
And then the other person was, you all need to shut up and listen to me. I know what's going on. And it was basically a regurgitation of Sean Ross Sapp. And then it was, you know, I have the know. And I'm like, dude, you don't know. Like, no, like I even made a video and I was getting kind of heated at Russell and a couple other people. I was like, guys, you guys don't know. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
This news just hit. You don't know if he's on anything. And the one thing that just irritated me with the marks about it on wrestling TikTok were just immediately, just AEW. And I'm like, look, if Jeff was having a problem with drugs and alcohol, AEW is not going to fix that. That's a Jeff problem.
Yeah.
And you can't, like, that can't be the end all be all when something happens with a wrestler, whether it's good or bad or ugly, is that, just AEW, he'll have a job and everything will smooth itself out. And Jeff Hardy, that whole situation, no one knew what was going on. And for Lita to get any backlash for using Twist of Fate, like you said, she's been doing the move for 20 years. And she is so far has been her own personality since the initial split of the three of them, or her from Matt and everything else.
Yeah.
So the Twist of Fate is just as much hers as it is any of the Hardy Boys.
She's getting more heat now than she got with the whole Edge, like sleeping with, the cheating on Matt with Edge thing. She's getting more heat now. And I'm like, you do realize that Jeff stole the Twist of Fate from his brother. It was not originally a move he used either. Right? Like that was something that he picked up during their first feud against each other. He used it against Matt and then started using it. It wasn't even his move. Like, and even then, he does it differently. Lita does it exactly like Matt did it.
Right.
Jeff does it differently. Like, why is this even even if they did it the same, why is this a thing? Like, nobody had an issue with it. Nobody had an issue with it when she used it after the Matt breakup. Nobody said anything then.
Yeah. And now, because it's after this event between Matt and WWE, that now her doing it, it's like people are reading too much into that. I think, like, they're probably saying, well, like, they put Lita out there to have her do the Twist of Fate to be like, fuck you Hardy Boys. And it's like, that's not, she's in the Rumble. They're typing the Rumble.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think that they're pushing for a Lita versus Charlotte at WrestleMania feud.
Okay.
It just feels that way. Although, like, after Lita's appearance, nobody has said anything since.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, like, Lita will probably throw out Charlotte, and that will lead to that feud. I have a feeling that Bianca will repeat unless Ronda Rousey's in the match.
Yeah.
And because if Ronda Rousey's in it, I think she wins and goes after Becky Lynch, and we can finally get that Ronda Rousey-Becky Lynch match.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think that Bianca deserves it because she has had a phenomenal rookie year and was a great champion and was done dirty and never really got retribution for being done dirty. And so, yeah. And, like, I think I agree with you too on the Liv Morgan being the Iron Woman. They kind of put themselves in a corner on accident because Becky Lynch was supposed to cheat on the ropes again in their win, but she was too far away and got a clean win instead. But if you make her the Iron Woman, and then that keeps her looking strong, and then you can do something with her later on down the road. But yeah, I don't. It's hard to believe what's going on. I can honestly tell you that somebody posed the question. I think I was watching What Culture Wrestling on YouTube, and somebody had posed the question: what would be the thing to happen at the Rumble that would make you just stop watching WWE? Like, what would be that one thing to be like that trigger to be like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I think if Charlotte wins the Rumble, I'm out. If Charlotte wins her Rumble, I'm done. Like, I'm not leaving the pay-per-view because, good seats and I had to pay for a flight and a hotel and everything. So, no, I'm going to stay. But, like, I'm not watching anymore. Like, that would be and it's not because necessarily of the push she gets, but it's because of the backstage attitude that if they keep pushing her, will only get more inflated. And the fact that many women have come out to speak about how she is backstage, even people still with the company, and that whole like the belt swap thing, which I'm probably one of the very few people who doesn't have an issue with the belt swap because they look, because of the fact that they look
Yeah.
identical, and it's just the brand you're on. So I don't have a problem with the champion swapping. I think so. It's like it shouldn't count as a second run with the belt. Like you shouldn't like. That's why I love the way Becky's holding it. She's like, I've never lost the Raw Women's Championship, and I've been
Yeah.
the Raw Women's Champion for 3 years now because of it. Like the way she's handling it, I think is done well. But like Charlotte throwing that fit and throwing the belt down and all that, and then like she had to be escorted out by security. That has been confirmed.
Yeah.
Like I just don't like her ego and the fact that she's very willing to bury people
I
for
think
her
she's
own.
gotten caught up with being called, you're only getting all these opportunities because of who your dad is and all that sort of stuff. And I think that she's gotten to the point she's like, oh, do you want to see that? Now you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's gone too far. I think the only reason why she's still there is because of who she is. Because I think that the moment that if WWE had said, you know what, you are too much of an issue and goodbye, you're on AEW the next as soon as the 90 days are up,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
however that is that works. Andrade's already there.
Yeah.
All of that would just immediately start anew over on AEW, and it wouldn't, people would shit all over it.
Yeah, because what would happen is the second she got there, her first night she'd beat Britt Baker and become champion.
Yeah, and then she would cut a promo ripping WWE to shreds,
Yeah.
and people would probably mark out and love that. But immediately that there would be the misguided AEW fans would be like, this is great. She walks in, she beats Britt Baker, she's the top of the world, and she rips WWE. Do you not understand everything that everyone has complained about her in WWE? They're just going to do the same thing, and you're going to be in the same perpetual story.
Because I know that she would definitely make it to where she probably also had 100% creative control, and AEW would be stupid not to throw a ton of money at her and give her whatever she wanted because of who she is. And then she would come out, she would beat Britt Baker, but not only beat her, but beat her probably within like 10 seconds. Probably it'd probably be like squash match. She'd just come out, beat her, take over, and then she'd hold the championship forever and just keep burying people. And they already have they have an issue with their women's division in AEW. Like,
oh yeah,
I
huge
don't
problem.
have a problem with Britt Baker being the champion this long, because honestly, she's the only over female they have. And like, I mean, I feel bad for Ruby Soho because she is literally fallen back into the same exact spot she was in WWE with AEW.
Yep.
And like they're pushing Jade Cargill, but I think that TBS championship's going to end up being kind of like worse than how the Intercontinental Championship is right now. Basically non-existent. Like it'll just be squash matches. There won't be any prestige to it. So like the other women's division needs help. Like
yeah.
they have the talent there. I don't think they have enough. Maybe no, I mean body count wise they have plenty of people.
Yeah, I think their biggest problem is the squash matches with Jade Cargill. Although I will say for an Instagram model turned professional wrestler, she isn't terrible, as some other people have been. But you have people that have kind of like Kira Hogan signed with AEW, and it was like very under the radar. They didn't announce it. They were just like, oh yeah, Kira Hogan's here.
Yeah, I think it was up on Twitter, but that was about it.
Yeah, and like you have all this depth, but you don't like you're not doing anything with half of those people. I mean, you're getting like they pretty much put Statlander and Britt Baker together again. They're weaving their way into breaking up Britt's group. And I agree that, and I think that Britt Baker is the best person for the championship to be on right now.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
And Jade Cargill was, I mean, I think everyone was like, as soon as they saw the colors of the TBS championship, like, well, Jade Cargill is going to win it.
Yeah.
If they want to use that to keep building her, I would be very interested to see who eventually does beat Jade Cargill. I'm assuming it's either going to be Ruby or Thunder Rosa at some point. One of the two of them, maybe.
Honestly, if it's not Thunder Rosa, she needs to leave.
Yeah.
Because they keep like dangling the carrot and then yanking that shit back.
Yeah.
And I know she's all about the business, and I get that. I understand that you have to do that from time to time, but she is too phenomenal to not be getting pushed properly.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, Jade Cargill is basically a homegrown AEW star. Cool. So if you're going to put it on anybody else, put it on Thunder Rosa, who isn't necessarily homegrown, but kind of is one of your original AEW big stars. Like, you need to put it on her. And like I know, I think Thunder Rosa and Nyla Rose are kind of in a program, but right now,
I think it's two of them. Yeah,
the only real women's matches we get are now becoming just title matches. Like, that's all we're getting. Like, it's like, yeah, we got that, the tag team match between, the Bunny and Penelope Ford versus Ty Conti and
Tay Conti and Anna Jay. Yeah,
like we got that bloody match and everything. But really, like, you're not getting any real programs, because that apparently was the send off for that. They're done now. They're not feuding anymore. It's over. If it's not Britt Baker in a match, it's Jay Like, if there's a women's match, either Jay Cargill or Britt Baker in it, and that's a problem. Not that I don't love seeing them, especially Britt Baker, who, again, I think is phenomenal. And, like, I also think, like, they kind of, like, that whole mixed tag match with her and Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander, I think that was thrown up there because of there's a match we didn't talk about, was the Miz and Maurice versus Edge and Beth Phoenix.
Oh, yeah, the It versus Grit.
Yeah. I think that, again, that's AEW being reactionary, because that kind of just came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Really did. It really did. And it also, and to have that, all of a sudden, you've not talked about it really at all, about the fact that Britt Baker and Adam Cole are together since he's gotten to AEW. Like, Tony Schiavone's
the one little thing with Schiavone.
Yeah, Tony Schiavone it was kind of a thing there, but it was more on social media than anything else. And then all of a sudden, you just throw them together in a match. And, like, but again, she was in the match. Like, it's like you have these two pillars that you're shaping everything around instead of shaping the division.
Right.
And I think part of that is the fact that, because it was starting to shape up about 6 months ago, they were really starting to, like, gain ground and build a better thing. And I think part of that is because Kenny Omega's in charge of the women's division.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how Fit Finley was back when the women's evolution started.
Mm-hmm.
Now Kenny's not there. Like, he's legit not there. Like, he is truly recovering, and he is not coming to shows. So it's just on Tony Khan, and it's really like, okay, well, who can I put Britt Baker against? Who can I put Jay Cargill against? It's like, that is all he sees the women's division as, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because they have so much talent there. Sarah Deeb. Sarah Deeb.
Yeah.
But again, like, she gets lost in the sauce, even though she's having these great matches. First of all, she's wrestled, what's her name?
Ryo Shikai. No, that's...
No,
yeah.
Is it Shikai?
Yeah, no.
Well, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Wrestled her like 712 times.
Mm-hmm.
That should be done now.
Yeah.
Like,
they've kind of beat that dead horse.
Have Sarah Deeb go after the TBS title, because that's a person who could really make something out of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But, like, she's not even, like, now she's not been on TV for a week and a half, 2 weeks.
I think like AEW's women's division is so blown out because you have a lot of talent from Japan and no one knows how to do anything with them but Kenny
Cheetah.
Omega.
Yeah.
Cheetah, yeah. That like you have all of these wrestlers from Japan that kind of came over all at the same time, and they're in all of the 6-woman tag team matches that are on Elevation and on Dark that get squashed by the heels or get squashed by whoever, and they don't really do anything. And it's frustrating to watch because you know that they're talented. They don't have a way to market them. WWE has the same problem with Japanese female wrestlers and stuff. I mean, Japanese wrestlers, I think in general, and they really haven't kind of found what the answer to that question is. And if anyone could probably pull it off, it'd be Omega. But
Yeah,
it's just getting there and getting people interested in that. Like people are like when like Rio winning the championship, people were just kind of like, that's great. Who is that? Where when you put it on someone who's more recognizable like Britt Baker, the fans are really quick to just jump to that. Because if you're not watching New Japan or you're not watching Japanese wrestling, you don't know who Rio is.
yep.
And that's kind of where their problem is at. At least with WWE, both Kairi Sane and Asuka, who I think were just the best two examples, if not the only examples. There are Io Shirai being the other one, is that you at least see them go through NXT and then they get fucked up on the main roster.
Yeah.
They get their time to where they like the people who develop, their attachment to them.
Yeah, exactly. Which I do believe Io Shirai will be in the Rumble.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be part of her move to the main roster because
her and Raquel Gonzalez.
Yeah, I think both of them because they don't fit anymore in the new
Mhm.
NXT. So I went ahead and pulled up the match cards for the Royal Rumble, and we nailed all of them. There's only a few matches. There's the Brock Lesnar Bobby Lashley, which we kind of already given our take on that. But again, who do you think will win that?
I think it's gonna wind up being Bobby by some sort of nefarious.
Yeah, I think so
activities.
too. I think so too. And then we got Roman Reigns versus Seth.
With Roman.
Yeah, I just don't see Roman losing. They've also made too much of a big deal of the fact that Seth is always beating him. So then we got Miz and Maurice versus Edge and Beth Phoenix.
I'm gonna go with Miz and Maurice squeaking out of that one.
All right, I'm gonna go Edge and Beth Phoenix on that one. I think that, and part of it is because Miz and Maurice just get buried all the time. That's kind of their role, but also the fact that they've gotten the upper hand more often in this back and forth and promos and whatnot, with the brick and everything else, and that Beth Phoenix and Edge haven't really gotten their hands on them. I think that it'll be Edge and Beth Phoenix, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was the other way around.
See, I'd squeak it the other way so that because the brick and the appearance that Edge and Beth Phoenix have taken on with like the mohawk and the leather and everything.
Yeah.
I would like to see them squeak out a win and then set up another match that's under like Extreme Rules or something like where you could really let the two of them loose and then just absolutely body Miz and Maurice and then be done with the two of them.
That's true, and it could also lead to Edge versus Miz at WrestleMania.
Yep.
Because our next pay-per-view is the Elimination Chamber, right?
In Saudi, yeah. I think it's on like the 15th or it's on some weird day.
And it's on a weird day.
It's on another Saturday.
It is a Saturday, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's like in the middle of the month. It's weird. So you might I can see that. That makes sense. Then we got Becky Lynch versus Doudrop, which I mean,
Becky Lynch.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way that Doudrop wins that. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And then we have the two Rumbles. So I know we kind of touched on it again, but who do you think is going to win the Rumble?
So the Rumbles,
At least, okay, I'll give you the participants that are in it now. So we don't know any of the surprises, but it's rare that a surprise wins the Rumble. We got Johnny Knoxville, Montez Ford, Angelo Dawkins, Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, Austin Theory, Sheamus, Damian Priest, AJ Styles, Big E, Happy Corbin, Madcap Moss, Sami Zayn, Kofi Kingston, Kevin Owens, Omos, Randy Orton, Riddle, Chad Gable, Otis, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode. So
it
900
comes
tag
down
teams.
right. For me, it comes down to it's either gonna like Big E or AJ Styles being another accolade they could just add to him and they can throw him in some sort of program. Everyone else in that list is just dispensable or they're in a
Yep.
tag team.
Yep. I'm gonna go Big E. I just like because I feel like at least I hope that he gets a proper title run, and if Bobby wins, it'll be a good program for the two of them at Mania. Okay, on the women's side, we have Carmella, Dana Brooke, Nikki ASH, Queen Zelina, Rhea Ripley, Tamina, Aaliyah, Charlotte Flair, Naomi, Natalia, Shayna Baszler, really? Um, Shotzi, Brie Bella, Lita, Nikki Bella, Kelly Kelly, Michelle McCool, Mickey James, Summer Rae, Bianca Belair, and Liv Morgan.
I think Bianca Belair repeats.
I think so too, because again, it gives it unless Ronda Rousey gets in,
Right. Yeah,
and
that would be
then
the alternative.
yeah, that's to be one alternative. Unless they decide to do another triple threat, which I think would be stupid,
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
because it needs to be a solo match between Becky and Ronda, especially since like it was very clear. Like obviously she was supposed to pin her in that moment, which is why the ref counted to 3, but Ronda's shoulder was clearly up.
Yeah,
Like
that was a big
it was like
fuck up.
4 to 6 inches off the mat.
Mm-hmm.
And I, which is so, and we may get the SmackDown tag team championship in the kickoff, but obviously if it's in the kickoff, the Usos win hands down.
Right.
Which it'd be hard for me to see the Viking Raiders beat them regardless, even if it was on the show. But I would be more inclined to believe they could do it on the show. But if it's on the kickoff, which I believe is where it's to be, it's just not, no way.
Yeah. No.
You know a name that I didn't see on the Rumble that I thought would be in there was Cesaro.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. I haven't heard anything out of him, like from him or anything in a while. I can't think of the last thing he was on for.
He was in that
He might,
the tag team gauntlet match, or not a gauntlet match, the for number one contenders match for the Usos. It was him and
that's
Mansoor
right.
as a tag team.
Yeah, yeah.
But like the week before, it was him and Ricochet as a tag team.
Ugh.
And like, I don't know, like Cesaro is so wasted. He is so wasted.
Oh, yeah.
That dude is phenomenal, and like really should, like, he can carry the company. He really can. Like, he would be a fantastic
If he got
champion.
booked properly, sky would be the limit for that guy. I mean, just on his pure strength alone and all the spots you can create with that, like, and all the moments and all that sort of stuff. Kind of like what they do with Bianca Belair. That woman's insanely strong.
Yeah.
And they've done stuff with Cesaro like that in the past, but I don't know if it's his accent or what Vince doesn't see in him. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, because, like, again, the dude is phenomenal. And, like, he's good on the mic. Like, when he was doing his Roman Reigns, like that, when he went after Roman Reigns, like, especially on, like, Talk Smack, like, his promos on there were so good. And not only is he super strong, probably arguably the strongest person pound for pound to ever be in the business, he's also technically sound. So you get a full range in that match. He's also, he is acrobatic when he needs to be. And like, he's been over, and then like, with his appearances on Up, Up, Down, Down, like, he got even more over. And like, again, Cesaro section, like Future brought up, that was huge. Like, the guy is over. And why they don't see that, I have no idea. Problem is, AEW so bloated he couldn't go there and be over either.
Yeah, I can't imagine them. He'd debut strong. He'd be in the same boat that Jay Lethal is in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just don't. I don't get it. Like, I mean, he could go to Impact and be huge, but he would be a whale in a tiny pond.
Yeah.
Like, it would be a waste. So it's just like, I mean, I guess that's why he is staying around like he's been staying around, but I don't know, man. It's just like, my God, like, what do you do? He just needs a push. And it's not even like a huge push. just give him the opportunity and he'll do it all for you. That's the thing.
Oh yeah.
He did it already. He showed
Yeah,
you.
oh yeah. You could give him the ball and he'd run with it. There'd be no, you wouldn't have to do anything. And they just don't. I have no idea what the deal is with that. I think amongst fans it's been that way for years. Where we're like, why are you not doing anything with this guy? And there's no answer.
I honestly think had his Roman Reigns feud happened with fans and not at the Thunderdome, they would not be able to ignore the pops.
Yeah, that's true.
And they would have had to have done something more with him. But unfortunately, it being in the Thunderdome, they can be like, oh, well, we didn't really feel it. And it's like, how do you not? It was phenomenal. It was such a great match.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and part of how I knew that is because he beat him clean. The Usos didn't interfere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, great. Yeah, that's the end of that. Like, as soon as that happened, I'm like, yep, that is the end of that. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like, he's so good. And even like if you put the Intercontinental title on him and just let him run with it.
Yeah, give him a good opponent. I'm kind of getting tired of the open challenge type of stuff they keep doing. The recycling.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah, but
have a good
give
feud.
him a solid feud. Like the feuds that they used to have for the United States, always been like kind of hit or miss. But like the Intercontinental feuds from like the late '90s and the early to mid 2000s were like, it really meant, like, you really cared who the Intercontinental Champion was.
There was a time when it meant more to me than the world title.
Yeah, and it's now it's just kind of like it's no different than the United States Championship.
Yeah, neither one of those titles mean anything anymore, and that sucks.
Nah. Yeah,
but I mean, if they continue this Kevin Owens, Damian Priest thing, they might be able to get something out of the United States title.
Yeah,
I mean, hell, have Sami Zayn beat Nakamura, which I think he will, just because again, Nakamura is not 100% healthy, and if they do end up having the match, I don't think they'll pull it off of him. Have Cesaro go after it. Have him chase him for a while. Have Sammy cheat to win a couple times. Have Cesaro finally go over. And then you can have Sami Zayn chase him for a bit, and then there's plenty of other heels. The fact that, like, yes, Brock Lesnar is a babyface, but he's not in the sense, like, he's not a big E babyface. And Bobby Lashley's heel. If they put the title on Lashley and they don't put it on Big E, you've got two heel world champions.
Yeah.
If Kevin Owens ends up beating Damian Priest for the United States title, you didn't have a heel champion there. Right now, you have two heel women's champions, which, I mean, as much as they're trying to make Becky Lynch a heel, it's not working. Like, put the Intercontinental title on a face and let him be chased by a good heel and let that guy, like, cheat in non-title match. Like, there's a way to build it, and you can make that championship prestigious again on a face. And, and he would be the guy to do it. Cesaro would absolutely be the guy to do it. If you're worried about how he would do with the world title, fine. Put the Intercontinental title on him and let him run with it.
Yep.
Because he will make the most.
I would do the same.
He'd make the most of it. It just sucks. Yep. All right. What time is it? How are we doing on time? All right. Let's go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, we're going to be in St. Louis for the Royal Rumble. Is there anything like that you might think might be... Oh, no. This is what I want to mention. Like, let's look back at previous Rumbles. Do you have like a favorite Rumble that comes to mind?
I've always like the Royal Rumble's always entertaining. The one that I remember really intently watching and really getting into was when Rey Mysterio won the Rumble, just because of everything with Eddie that was going on around it. Yeah. And like that, that meaning like the absolute, like, you're watching that and just being like, wow, and then said that WrestleMania triple threat wasn't bad either. That one I remember vividly. That definitely can never forget Batista and Cena going over at the same time, and Vince blowing his quads out.
Man.
Yeah.
I remember watching
I
that live and
remember,
going, why is he sitting down?
yeah, yeah, I remember watching that and just being like, what is going on here? And then like, my buddy's like, I think Vince tore his quad.
Well,
And then like,
I thought he shit himself because when he refused to be carried back, he walked back, but he
right,
had that walk like ass tight, like he had shit himself. I'm like, oh my god, did he like
yeah.
jump in the ring and shit himself? Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one.
Those
That
always come to mind. I remember being pissed with the Roman having to defend it in the Rumble and all that.
oh
Orton,
yeah,
the
yeah.
one weird year that when Orton won, where it made no sense for Orton to win, and just yeah, I mean, there's hit or miss ones. The one with Rey Mysterio though, that just had so much going on at the time. That one was really special.
Yeah, I have two that come to mind. One is the '92 Rumble where Ric Flair went at number one and won, and actually won the title in the Rumble. That was when the first time the Forbidden Door was ever really kicked down, because he came over with the WCW title and said,
Mhm.
"I'm done," whatever. And then I believe it was the 2001 Rumble, where you had Stone Cold and The Rock, and the one where like Triple H and Stone Cold beat the living crap out of each other,
Yeah,
and then Stone Cold came back at the end. I think it's either 2001 or 2002. I think it's 2001. And that set up that fantastic WrestleMania between The Rock and Stone Cold.
hmm
Um, so those are the two that come to mind for me. But the Rumble, like you said, I think Rumbles, even when, like I said, even when they're bad, they're good because the ending may be bad, like in like the case of Roman Reigns, where even The Rock got booed, which I didn't think was possible.
yeah, that was
Um,
nuts.
and you could see it on his face. He was like, "Oh shit." The Randy one, I know which one you're talking about, and yeah, it was a little weird that he won, but I was okay with it. But I think like Rumbles for the most part, even when you have like a bad outcome at the end of it, the hour of it is great
hmm
because they're ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
They're just insane. And like I remember the one, it was kind of like a hardcore Royal Rumble because like the hardcore guys came out and brought the baseball bats, the kendo sticks, and all the trash can. And Kane just came out and just decimated everybody.
yeah.
I think that was the one that Drew Carey was in. I remember the one where the Daniel Pewter.
Daniel Peter getting his ass
Yeah.
whooped by
And
everybody
so
for
many
being
people are
a.
like, "Oh, they shouldn't have done that." I'm like, "No, because he
He
understood."
shot on Kurt Angle. Like,
Yeah. And his whole excuse,
so
"Oh,
dumb.
I thought it was a shoot match." Dude, you're in Tough
No.
Enough. The whole thing is a work, and they've been telling you that from day one. It's a work. And the fact that you tried to break his arm, not get him to tap, but break his
hmm
arm, you deserve to get your ass beat. I mean, I won't talk
Oh
about
yeah.
a particular person that was in that beat up, but
Right.
um I actually have a story about that because I'm not going to say his name, but he was supposed to come down to what was the fledgling FCW. Because when they took over our wrestling school, Steve Kern's School of Hard Knocks, we were actually kept on as assistant trainers and we could train there because we had already, paid our school dues and everything and whatnot.
hmm
He was supposed to win the championship that weekend and then come down to the school and train with us. We were all looking forward to it. I was a huge fan, one of the best. And I remember I was sitting in my car waiting for a friend of mine to come out of her apartment. And I got the call that he had passed. Now, this is
hmm
before anybody knew anything. And then
hmm
that Monday Night Raw happened with the tribute. And then by Tuesday, we all knew what happened. And so that Wednesday was really rough at the school.
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah, we had all made like a welcome this person banner and everything. We're like, oh, that's got to come down.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah, that was rough. I also
hearing
remember, yeah,
getting the news and here and then like watching it on Raw and then you find like we people started finding out what happened towards the very last hour of that Raw.
yeah.
And then you were like, oh
Oh
man,
no, yeah,
yeah,
and
just awful.
that was crazy. I also remember exactly where I was when I found out that Eddie passed away. I was working at a Ruby Tuesdays, and I came in for my shift. and I literally had just walked in. I was talking with the hostess, trying to figure out what my section was going to be, and the TV was above my head, and I heard him mention his name, so I turned up to look, and they're telling me that he was dead. And I was like, it was 11. It was like 11 o'clock. Right before 11 o'clock, my shift started at 11, and I was there just a few minutes early when I saw that news story. I was like, holy shit. So those were two big ones at the time, just for very different reasons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. But yeah, he was part of that beatdown. And then Bob Holly, who I have no respect for.
Yeah,
that guy's a piece of
some
shit.
of the stories I've heard about him are just like, oh man, come on.
And the thing is, they're probably not as bad as they actually were. Like the story you've heard is probably not as bad as it actually was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. Like there was even a time when they talked about bringing him down to FCW. And we were like, no. God, no. No. And JBL, also an asshole. There was some
well
bad
documented.
dudes. Yeah, there was some bad dudes back then, but it should be a good pay-per-view though. I think, the fact that the card is light is good for the Rumbles themselves. I don't know if we're going to get that Undertaker appearance, but if we do, it'll be some kind of promo, probably having to do with 2K22. But maybe it will lead to a proper send-off at WrestleMania for him.
That'd be nice.
I think it would be cool. But plus, just if I hear, I'm going to piss myself if I hear the gongs. Because I've actually been in the ring with Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they came down to FCW, the first ring we got was an old WWF blue and yellow rope ring. And it was Undertaker's old training ring that he had at his house.
Oh, damn.
And so the truck pulls up, the driver gets out, he helps us unload everything, and he's like, hey, the guy with me, he wants to come in and roll around with you guys. We're like, what? Some buddy of yours that you just came along? Whatever. It was Mark Calloway. So he's in a gray tank top and jeans, and he comes in, and I got old schooled and tombstoned, which was beyond amazing, just to say that it happened to me. So to see, but I've never seen him live actually being the Undertaker. Like I've never been able to experience the gongs. I've never been able to experience that. So that would be something that I'm like super, super excited for. So I kind of hope it happens. I was kind of hoping he would make an appearance at WrestleMania just because it was the first live show back. And he was in Tampa. But he didn't. But plus the way that it was raining and lightning, like there was still heat lightning going on. Like it would have been really cool if it just happened to time out when he came out.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. But I think, so the last thing I'm going to touch on is what merch are you going to buy when you get there?
I am unfortunately a large man. I'm 6'5" and 360 pounds, so no merch will be bought by me at the live event because none of it will fit me.
Ah, that's a good point.
But speaking of merch, I am doing the fundraiser with Panda.
Oh yes.
There are 11 of us creators from Wrestling TikTok. We all went to pretty much together, and we opened up a Teespring shop that's in all of our bios. You buy any of our merch, and a portion of those, or all the 100% of the sales go to the Cauliflower Alley Club and Alex's Lemonade Stand. We have stickers and shirts, and it's a bunch of the people that you see on TikTok every day that talk about wrestling.
Yeah, I did. I checked that out today, actually. I thought that was really cool. You have the video for that pinned to the top of your TikTok, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
sure do.
So go to his TikTok. Make sure you check it out. The link is also right there in his bio. Also, the other guys like Russell and Love Panda, that's also the link is there as well. You can find it there as well. So definitely go check that out. Support a great, great cause. I know for myself, I'm buying the Johnny Knoxville World Champion shirt. I think it's spot on. But I will be wearing my Evolution of Brock Lesnar shirt just because I love that shirt. But yeah, so it's going to be a great show. I'll have to like drudge my way up to the 400s to come see you guys. I'll come slum with the poor people up there. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, definitely I'll come up and see you guys. If there's anybody else that's going to be there in St. Louis, don't hesitate to come say hi. We love you guys. and it's going to be a great show, even if it's not a great show, because it's just fun to be out and watching wrestling live. And it's a bucket list for me to get a Royal Rumble. I got my
Yeah, for
WrestleMania
sure.
bucket list, and the Royal Rumble was the next one. And I'm good after that, but I will still continue to go to shows, but my bucket list will be checked off as far as major pay-per-views. So this will be a great one. CPG, thank you so much for joining me. I know this was last minute. I appreciate you coming on. Again, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again. And I look forward to seeing you in St. Louis.
Yeah, anytime, man.
All right. Thanks, guys, and we will see you next week.